Professor, we want to thank you and appreciate your time for being part of this great launch. We understand that you've made it possible in your busy schedule. Professor, we'll just love to maybe greet the Swazi people and all those who have had the liberty and privilege of watching this, historic event that is going to be taking place here soon.
Yeah, good evening to the people of Eswatini. That is the name that we now popularly refer to Swaziland by. And we, as people who believe in the unity and the freedom of the people of Africa, we are keenly following the events that have been taking place in Pambane and throughout Eswatini or Swaziland.
Thank you, Professor. Just a few questions for you, Prof. What are the agitators of change in the context of the killings that have taken place in Swaziland?
First of all, let us recognize that all instruments that deal with human rights frown upon any act or act whether by governments or non-governmental institutions that lead to the death of any person. If you look at the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, you look at the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, and all instruments, they are clear and explicit that the governments in Africa, and specifically in this case, in the case of Eswatini, should do everything within its powers to protect people's lives and properties. And if it should be that through the use of excessive force, governmental institutions cause people's death, then those who are involved should be punished in accordance with the law, the laws of Eswatini, and if they cannot be punished in accordance with the laws of Eswatini, then there is no shortage of institutions within the continent of Africa or internationally through which they can be called to account.
Thank you very much, Prof. In your personal opinion, Professor Mulumba, of the murder of over 80 people, maiming over 600 and imprisonments of thousands of Swazis, including the two members of parliament, Honorable Mduduzi Baqede Mabuza and Mthandeni Dube, as well as the manhunt to murder Honorable President Mduduzi Kawuzela Simelane of the Swaziland Liberation Movement. What would be your personal opinion on these kind of activities performed by the government of Swaziland? Eswatini.
First of all, let me say that I'm a respecter of African tradition, but I do not believe in absolute monarchies. I believe that in this day and age, the people should be allowed to express themselves, and the criminalization of alternative views cannot and should not be tolerated in any country. And if indeed Eswatini is a good citizen of the continent of Africa, it is under an obligation to ensure that it respects the provisions of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. If it is a good citizen of SADC, it should ensure that it complies with the statutes of SADC. And if it is a good citizen of the international community, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the protocols of 1966 and the Geneva Convention, to the extent that they are applicable, are quite clear that a government should not criminalize alternative views. And if indeed it can be established that institutions of government have caused the deaths of 80 people and have also caused the maiming of 600 people and have caused people to be exiled, then the international community ought to take action to ensure that the individuals who are involved are called to account. History is replete with examples of individuals who have been held accountable when they criminalized
Professor, thank you for that response. Maybe what should be the reaction of the Swazi people, the significance of unity in diversity, maintaining hope with reference to other African states that might have been through what we are going through as a people of Swaziland? Is there any hope for change?
Hope can never die. One of the things that I have always hoped for, and in the last few weeks, I've written a letter to all heads of states and government, including King Mswati III, asking them to convene an urgent meeting of all African heads of states and government in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to deal with the following three things. Number one, the state of Africa. Number two, the conflicts that are taking place in Africa. And number three, the solution that we need to put in place. And my view is that the people of Eswatini have a God-given right to agitate for freedom, and freedom means the ability to participate in the governance of their country, to make contribution, because even when you have absolute monarchies, there is nobody, whether they are kings or queens, who have the monopoly of wisdom and knowledge. Those who find themselves serving as kings must remember that they are there because they have been given that honor and privilege. And I hope that those who are in the monarchy in Eswatini will wake up to the reality that in the 21st century you cannot defeat a people who are united. You can only delay what is going to come, but ultimately the will of the people will prevail. And one need only look at Europe. There was a time when Europe, from Sweden to the Soviet to Russia, had absolute monarchies. But there came a time when the people rose up. And they rose up, and all those monarchies became constitutional monarchies, and where they did not become constitutional monarchies, they were eliminated in countries such as Italy and France and many others. So that same history, if the people, the kingship in Eswatini does not learn from it, the chicken will come home to roost.
Professor Patrick Lumumba, we so much grateful and appreciate your insight. Maybe just last one question to say, what would then be your message to Swalimo, the newly formed liberation movement of Swaziland? What would be your message to Swalimo leadership and the members, and what to consider as a liberation movement? And of course, appeal to other political organizations to be tolerant towards the movement as a complementing partner, of course, and not a competitor only.
My message is that people who are oppressed have a God-given right to organize themselves, and that they must organize themselves in dignity. If they are condemning the people, the king of oppression in Swaziland, for using violence, they themselves must not engage in violence. They must ensure that their struggle to regain their dignity, their struggle to ensure that their rights are observed, must be conducted in a manner that is peaceful. They must act with the firmness that will open the eyes of the leadership and ensure that everybody is allowed to participate. And remember that there can be no unanimity. They should allow different ideas. And I have no doubt in my mind that if they conduct themselves with decorum and if they conduct themselves with firmness, then liberty to the people of Eswatini will come as surely as the day follows the night.
Professor